Aaron Locke had come to this dead world for peace, believing that silence could heal a mind that had seen too much war and too much loss. The planet had no cities, no signals, no life signs, and no storms. It was cold, empty, and forgotten by every map. That was exactly why he chose it. His small wooden cabin stood alone on frozen soil, surrounded by gray mountains and a sky that never changed. For weeks, nothing moved, nothing spoke, and nothing breathed except him. The nights were long, but the peace was real. He believed he had finally escaped the chaos of the galaxy. But peace never stays for long, not for a human with a past like his. One morning, he woke to a strange sound, something soft and slow like a long drag against the outer wall of his cabin. At first, he thought it was wind, but the planet did not have wind strong enough to scratch wood. When he stepped outside, the cold air stabbed his face, and he noticed something he had never seen before. Footprints. Not human footprints. They were deep, wide, and three-toed, pressed firmly into the frozen ground in a perfect circle around his cabin. And they were fresh. He bent down and touched the ice inside the tracks. It was still melting. Aaron stepped back, scanning the empty land around him. There was no movement, no shapes, no shadows, but he felt something, a feeling he had tried to leave behind on distant battlefields, the feeling of being watched. He returned inside and locked the door, but the silence inside the cabin felt even heavier now. He moved slowly, checking each window crack, each corner, each old wooden beam. The cabin felt smaller than before, like something was pushing closer from outside. Later, when the sky dimmed and the cold deepened, he heard a new sound, a soft thud, as if something tapped gently on the wall near the window. Then another tap on the back door, then a slow, dragging sound around the cabin again. He stood still, breathing slowly, listening. There were voices too, low, whispering voices in a language he did not know. They were not loud, they were not angry. They sounded curious, almost gentle, like hunters whispering to each other while watching prey. He picked up the old metal rod he used for protection, though he knew it would not help against anything advanced or dangerous. When morning finally came, Aaron unlocked the door and stepped outside with slow steps. The sun was weak, barely lighting the land. For a moment, he saw nothing strange, until he turned and looked at the wooden wall next to the door. An arrow. A cold metal arrow with glowing blue veins in its surface was stuck deep in the wood. Someone had fired it while he slept. But the arrow was not the worst part. Hanging from it was a small metal tag with burned alien script. He could not read the language, but the translator in his rust patch activated automatically. The glowing words translated slowly in front of his eyes. Only 2 words. Male found. His chest tightened. His heartbeat went rough. These beings were not random visitors. They came looking for someone specific, and they found him. Before he could think, the ground under his feet trembled lightly. Not like an earthquake, but like something heavy moved nearby. Aaron looked up to the ridge above his cabin. At first, he saw only the rocks. Then shadows began to form. Tall shapes. Not 1, not 2, 6. They wore dark armor with long, sharp designs, their bodies slim but powerful. Their helmets had glowing lines like eyes watching him from above. They stood still, silent, as if studying him like he was a rare creature. Aaron slowly stepped back, but one of the huntresses raised her hand. The air shimmered around her fingers, and he heard a soft voice, carried through some kind of amplifier. This time he understood the words clearly. The Empress has been waiting. Aaron froze. He had never heard that name spoken like a warning. The Empress of the starbound throne commanded one of the strongest empires in the galaxy. No one ever escaped her reach when she decided to find someone. And if she had sent huntresses to a dead world, it meant only one thing. She wanted a human. She wanted him. The huntresses moved down the ridge, walking with slow, confident steps. Aaron realized that if he stayed frozen in place, he would be captured in seconds,
and if he ran, they would chase. But running was better than standing still. He turned and rushed back into the cabin, locking the door, even though he knew it would not help. The ground outside shook as they approached. The walls of the cabin trembled as if touched by something huge. More whispers came from outside. They were surrounding him now, moving with purpose, testing the walls, checking the strength of the door, marking their positions like a trained squad. Aaron breathes fast, but steady. If the Empress wanted him, he needed to stay alive long enough to understand why. And he needed to escape before they broke in. That was the moment he realized something important. The dead world was not dead. It was a trap, and he had walked into it by choice. But humans do not break easily, and Aaron Locke was not going to be taken without a fight. Aaron Locke did not wait for the Huntresses to reach the door. He grabbed his small pack, a thermal cloak, and the portable light crystal he kept for emergencies. The cabin shook again, more strongly this time, as if someone pressed a massive hand against the outer wall. He knew the wooden structure would not survive long. He dropped to the floor and pushed aside an old crate, revealing a narrow hatch. This was his escape tunnel, something he had built during his first week on the planet. He had not expected to use it so soon, but now it was his only chance. He slid inside and closed the hatch above him, plunging into cold darkness. The tunnel was tight, forcing him to crawl on his elbows. Above him, he heard the sound of wood cracking. A sharp weapon sliced through the wall like it was paper. They were breaching the cabin. Aaron crawled faster, ignoring the burning pain in his arms, as rough ice scraped his skin. When he stepped out on the other end, hidden behind a pile of old stones, he peeked back toward the cabin. Through the gaps between boulders, he saw them clearly for the first time. The Huntresses. They were tall, almost 7 feet, with long limbs built for speed. Their armor was made of dark metal plates that curved like scales, and glowing lines ran down their chests like veins of light. Their helmets had narrow masks, sharp at the edges, like the face of a predatory bird. They moved silently in a semicircle around the cabin, coordinated and smooth, like blades dancing in air. One stepped forward and reached out, touching the door lightly. The wooden surface bent inward without a sound, as if responding to her will. Aaron realized her armor was not just armor, it had some kind of telekinetic conductor built into it. He backed away quietly, staying low, keeping cover between him and them. His breath formed clouds in the cold air. He needed distance, but the frozen forest ahead was dangerous in its own way. The trees were tall and brittle, their branches cracking under the weight of old frost. The forest floor was uneven, filled with deep pits that looked shallow from above. But Aaron had studied this land. He knew which paths were safe and which were death traps. The Huntresses did not. That gave him a small advantage. He moved quickly, stepping only on solid ground, avoiding the soft-looking patches of snow that hid deep sinkholes. Behind him, he heard a sharp sound, a command in the Huntresses' language. They had noticed he was gone. 2 Huntresses sprinted out of the cabin area, moving fast, faster than he expected. Their steps were long and silent, their bodies leaning forward like running predators. Aaron ran too, but he knew he was slower. Humans could not match alien hunters in raw speed, but they had something else: instinct, improvisation, and stubborn will. He changed direction suddenly, diving behind a fallen tree. One huntress leapt over it gracefully, but she misjudged the ground and landed on a soft patch. There was a cracking sound. The snow collapsed beneath her. She dropped into a deep pit of frozen mud and sharp rocks. She tried to climb out, but the sides crumbled each time she reached for a grip. Aaron did not stop to watch. He kept moving deeper into the forest. The second huntress slowed down now, scanning the ground with more caution. She activated a scanner on her wrist, but the forest had strong mineral interference. The readings flickered and vanished. Aaron slipped behind the trunk of a giant dead tree and listened. He could hear her breathing, slow and controlled. She was close. Too close. He needed to create a distraction. He reached into his pack
and pulled out a spark flare. It was designed to burn hot and bright for only a few seconds. He threw it far to the left, hitting a branch and creating a burst of bright blue light. The huntress reacted instantly, turning her head toward the flare and launching a drone. As soon as her attention shifted, Aaron rushed the opposite direction, using the forest shadows to cover his movement. He reached a mound of old ice where he knew the ground dipped downward into a hidden slope. He slid down the slope, letting himself fall carefully until he reached the bottom. The forest behind him went quiet. The huntresses must have realized the flare was a trick. Now they would be searching methodically, using tactics and sensors. He needed a place where their scanners would fail. The only place nearby was the old alien station buried under the ice. He had found it by accident months ago, but had never entered. He reached the hidden entrance, concealed behind a cracked stone pillar half covered in snow. He brushed the frost away and pressed the faint marking on the pillar. The old mechanism hummed weakly, and a narrow doorway opened with a low rumble. Warm air, heavy with dust and old machinery, wafted out. Aaron slipped inside and sealed the door. The station was dim, lit by old energy cells that still flickered after decades. Metallic vines ran across the walls, humming softly. He walked carefully, his footsteps echoing lightly. He reached a central chamber where a hologram panel flickered. He touched the surface, and ancient recordings played automatically. He saw images of humans, warriors, scientists, diplomats, moving through different worlds. He saw alien symbols describing their strength, their unpredictability, their resistance to psychic influence. Then he saw a recording of a tall, regal figure, the Empress. Her eyes glowed like burning stars. Her voice was calm but powerful. She spoke in a language the station translated automatically. The human mind cannot be bound. Only one can break the silence. A male must be found. Aaron stepped back, feeling cold sweat on his neck. The huntresses were not hunters. They were collectors. He was not prey. He was a target. And the Empress had been searching for someone like him for years. Before he could think further, the station lights turned red for a moment. A motion alert. Something had entered the outer corridor. Aaron's heart hit his ribs. They had found the station, and now the huntresses were closing in again. Aaron froze when the old station lights shifted from weak yellow to pulsing red. The sound that followed hit him like ice water pouring down his back. A low metallic growl echoed through the hollow corridors, the station's ancient security system reacting to movement. The huntresses had entered the structure. Their footsteps were faint but sharp, tapping against the metal floor far above him. The station amplified every vibration, letting him feel each silent step as if they walked directly on his spine. Aaron moved slowly, sliding behind an abandoned console, careful not to make even the smallest sound. His breath grew shallow. He listened closely, trying to count how many had entered. Judging by the rhythm, there were 3. No, 4. They spread out with perfect precision, dividing the corridors like they had trained in places like this their entire lives. The station, once a research hub, had long been dead, but its corridors still held pockets of warmth and dry air. In the dim light, Aaron saw ancient control panels covered in dust, walls lined with cables older than his grandparents, and rusted crates that once held tools from a forgotten age. The hologram of the Empress flickered faintly in the center of the chamber, repeating silent words like a ghost stuck between worlds. Aaron wished it would shut down. The flicker could draw attention. He crawled to a nearby pillar and pressed a button that dimmed the projection. Darkness returned to the chamber, broken only by faint strips of light along the walls. A sharp click echoed from the far hallway. Aaron knew that sound. A scanning spear. The huntresses used them to map heat signatures and pick up heartbeats through walls. He pressed his back against the cold metal floor and slowed his breathing until it felt almost unnatural. A blue shimmer swept through the chamber, crawling over the floor and climbing up the walls like a wave.
When it passed over his body, he felt a light vibration against his ribs. He gritted his teeth, trying to stay still. After a moment, the shimmer faded and the station went silent again. Aaron knew the scan had malfunctioned. The old alien metals in the walls caused interference. That was his one advantage. This place weakened their sensors. But the Huntresses were not relying only on technology. Their hearing, reflexes, and instincts were far more dangerous. One of them stepped into the chamber above, and Aaron recognized her from earlier. She was the tall one, with silver markings carved across her helmet. She moved like a shadow, her body barely making any noise as she surveyed the chamber. Her armor emitted a soft hum, as if responding to her heartbeat. Aaron watched through a crack beneath the platform she stood on. Her boots were sharp and clawed at the tips, designed for climbing and gripping terrain. She walked with slow precision, as if she could smell fear. Aaron needed to move before she looked down. He rolled quietly to the side, stopping behind an old generator block. It was large enough to hide him, but not for long. The huntress paused and tilted her head. She must have sensed movement. She stepped closer, her hands sliding across the air. A blue sphere of energy appeared in the chamber, lighting it with a cold glow. It was a life detection orb. If she activated it fully, it would pick up even the faintest trace of warmth. Aaron did not wait. He threw a small metal shard, something he had picked off the floor earlier, toward the far side of the chamber. It hit a broken pipe, making a sharp ping that echoed loudly. The huntress reacted instantly. She deactivated the orb and spun toward the sound, raising her weapon. A thin, sharp blade of light extended from her wrist in an instant. She moved toward the noise, and Aaron slipped out from the other side of the generator. He moved into a narrow corridor, guided by the faint map in the station. He remembered a sealed maintenance shaft somewhere deeper inside. If he reached it, he might crawl into the sublayers where the Huntress's armor wouldn't fit. He walked quickly, but quietly, his footsteps pressing lightly against the metal floor. The corridor curved downward, and the flickering lights made the shadows dance like ghosts. Suddenly he heard something behind him, a soft breath, almost like a sigh. Aaron spun around, but he did not see anyone. Then a faint figure stepped out from behind a pillar. Another huntress. But this one moved differently. Her steps were gentle, almost hesitant, and her posture looked tense. She raised her hand, more as a warning than an attack. Aaron stepped back carefully. She did not chase him. Instead, she spoke in a calm, almost soft tone. "Human, you should not run. It is not safe here." Her voice sounded young, not weak, but concerned. Aaron frowned. This was unexpected. He stayed silent, unsure if this was a trick. She looked at him through her helmet's narrow visor, and her voice lowered. "This station holds memories. It was not built for you. If you stay here, you will be trapped." She took a step forward, slowly, with her hands open to show she meant no harm. But before she could take another step, a sharp voice echoed through the station. "Unit 3, stand down." The young huntress stiffened instantly. The leader with the silver markings entered the corridor behind her. Her presence filled the air like a storm. She walked forward with confidence, her blade still glowing. "He is the one the Empress seeks. You are not to speak to him without command." The young huntress lowered her head and stepped aside. The leader raised her hand, pointing directly at Aaron. "Human, do not run anymore. You cannot escape this planet. You cannot hide in dead structures, and you cannot fight us." Her tone was calm, but her stance showed complete certainty. "Come with us. The Empress has waited." Aaron tightened his jaw. He stepped back slowly into the shadows. The leader's head tilted, sensing his decision. Do not be foolish. But humans were usually at their strongest when cornered. Aaron turned and sprinted into the maintenance shaft just as the Huntresses rushed forward. The door sealed behind him with a heavy clang. He slid down the metal tunnel as lights flickered above. The Huntresses pounded on the door, trying to force it open. Aaron dropped deeper into darkness. He had escaped again, but the Huntresses of the Empress were not giving up. And this time, they knew exactly where he was going. Aaron slid down the narrow maintenance shaft, the metal wall scraping his arms as he tried to control his fall. The tunnel twisted sharply, forcing him to slam into one side and then the other before reaching a lower platform. His landing was rough, knocking the air from his lungs. Above him, he heard the Huntresses pounding on the sealed hatch. Their weapons hissed as they tried to melt or slice through it. The echoes vibrated down into the lower layers like thunder trapped in metal cages. Aaron pushed himself up, knowing he only had minutes before they broke through. The deeper part of the station stretched before him, old, dark, and dripping with a constant slow leak from cracked pipes overhead. He could smell old chemicals mixed with dust and dry air, the stale scent of a place that had been forgotten for centuries. He moved farther into the darkness, careful not to make any noise. The lower levels were colder, the temperature dropping so fast that his breath turned into white vapor. The flickering lights on the walls flickered, failing slowly as their ancient power cells died one by one. Aaron used his small crystal light to see the path ahead. The corridor opened into a giant chamber with metal arches, collapsed walkways, and hanging wires that swayed like frozen vines. Everything looked fragile, yet dangerous.
The corridor narrowed and then opened into a wide platform with a broken railing overlooking a massive open shaft. The shaft dropped deep into blackness, so dark that even his crystal light could not reveal its bottom. Across the shaft was another walkway, half broken and swaying precariously. Aaron stepped toward the edge, feeling the cold metal vibrate slightly from distant movement. He looked around for a bridge or any safe path, but the only way forward was across the unstable walkway. Behind him, footsteps echoed again, closer now. The Huntresses were tracking him with precision, using their advanced senses to lock onto his direction. Aaron made a choice. He stepped onto the broken walkway. The metal groaned under his weight, threatening to collapse at any moment. He kept his steps slow and steady, spreading his weight carefully. The thin rail shook beside him. Halfway across, a crack snapped loudly beneath his foot. He froze. The walkway tilted, sinking slightly. If he moved too fast, it would fall. If he moved too slow, the Huntresses would reach him. A voice echoed behind him, amplified by a device. It was the leader, the Huntress with silver markings. "Human, you risk death with every step. Stop now." Aaron did not answer. He kept moving slowly. Another crack echoed. The metal shifted again. He felt sweat on his forehead despite the freezing air. His legs trembled from the strain of holding still while balancing. When he finally reached the other side, he let out a quiet breath, only for the entire structure to tilt suddenly behind him. The walkway collapsed completely, crashing into the dark abyss with a long, echoing roar. The Huntresses stood at the broken edge, staring at him from across the gap. The leader stepped forward. "You make this harder than it must be. We do not harm males. The Empress issued direct command." Her tone was calm, but her posture was tight, like she was holding back frustration. The younger Huntress stepped beside her, watching Aaron quietly. He noticed something in her stance, uncertainty, maybe even hesitation, but the leader raised her hand and the younger one fell silent again. Aaron turned away and continued deeper into the chamber. The floor sloped downward and a low hum filled the air. The court chamber pulsed with faint light. Giant machines surrounded a central pillar of dim energy, flickering like a dying heartbeat. Aaron approached cautiously. The station had one last defense system, a gravitational pulse field used against intruders. He remembered the old recordings mentioning it. If he could power it up, even partially, he could trap the Huntresses on the other side of the broken walkway. He ran to the control panel and wiped the dust away. The screen flickered, then lit up weakly. Alien symbols appeared. The translator patch struggled but managed a rough translation. Emergency override. Gravitational lock. Aaron pressed it.
The chamber rumbled like a sleeping giant awakening. A deep vibration rolled through the station. The lights flickered violently. Then a loud metallic blast shook the whole structure. The gravitational field activated. On the other side of the walkway, the Huntresses stumbled as invisible force waves crashed against them. The leader growled in frustration, gripping the wall as the air distorted around her. The younger Huntress tried to stabilize herself but slipped to her knees. Aaron backed away slowly. He had finally gained a few minutes. Just a few. But then, something unexpected happened. The core energy behind him flared brighter than before, and a hologram appeared in the air. Not the Empress, someone else. A human scientist from centuries ago. His recorded message played automatically. Warning to any surviving humans, the Empress will return for what was taken from her. You must not let her find the one with resonance. If she does, the galaxy will fall. Aaron stared at the hologram of the long-dead scientist as his voice echoed through the chamber, distorted by age but still heavy with warning. The faint blue figure flickered in and out, drifting like a ghost caught in a dying machine. You must not let her find the one with resonance, the hologram repeated before dissolving into static. Aaron felt a chill crawl down his spine. The word resonance carried a strange weight in his mind. It meant nothing to him, yet every instinct told him it meant everything to the Empress. Behind him, the gravitational lock shuddered as the Huntresses tried to push through. The metal walkway screamed under the pressure of the field. Their armor absorbed most of the force, but not enough to break through. Aaron's moment of safety was thin, like ice ready to crack under his next breath. He turned back toward the core pillar, its dim energy pulsing more violently after the activation. Small arcs of electricity snapped along its sides, striking nearby rails with sharp flashes. The old station was alive for the first time in ages, but it felt unstable, ready to collapse at any moment. Aaron stepped closer, squinting as the light brightened. The hum inside the chamber grew deeper, vibrating through the floor and into his bones. He could feel it, literally feel it, as if the energy reached toward him. He took another step and his chest tightened, a heavy pressure squeezing his lungs. He staggered back, gripping a metal railing to steady himself. His vision blurred for a second. The energy core reacted to him, not to the Huntresses. Him. A sharp boom shook the station. The gravitational lock weakened for a moment, flickering like a candle in a storm. The leader's voice rang through the chamber, amplified and sharp. "Human, step away from the core. It is not meant for your body." Her words were steady, but there was something different now. Urgency, not command. Fear. A second boom followed as the Huntresses braced themselves against the force. Their boots skidded on the metal as they fought to cross the broken walkway. Sparks flew where their armor touched the disrupted gravity waves. Aaron ignored her shout and moved toward the central console. His hands trembled as he touched the screen again, trying to reactivate the hologram, hoping to find another recording. But the controls were unstable. The station's systems flickered wildly, several sections shutting down and rebooting. A sudden burst of energy surged through the floor, knocking him to one knee. He gritted his teeth and pushed himself up. He could not stay here. The core was too unpredictable and the Huntresses were seconds away from breaking through. He scanned the chamber quickly, looking for another exit, any path that could lead him away from the chaos. A small maintenance tunnel, half hidden behind old machinery, caught his eye. It led downward, deeper into the station where no one had walked in centuries. It was narrow, dark, and dangerous, but it was the only direction not filled with armored warriors hunting him. He ran toward it, boots skidding slightly on the vibrating floor. He reached the entrance just as the gravitational lock collapsed in a blinding flash. The force wave burst outward, shaking dust and debris from the ceiling. Aaron dove into the tunnel. Behind him, the Huntresses burst into the chamber, their blades glowing as they stabilized their footing. The leader roared a command in her native language, her voice echoing like thunder. Aaron crawled deeper into the tunnel, hearing metal crash behind him as the Huntresses gave chase. The passage was so tight that he had to move on his elbows, pushing himself through darkness that smelled of rust and ancient machinery. The tunnel sloped downward, and soon gravity took over. He slid fast, unable to stop himself. The tunnel spiraled like a broken coil, sending him tumbling through dust and old cables. He landed hard on a lower platform, coughing as the impact knocked the air from his lungs again. The crystal light rolled out of his hand, bouncing across the metal until it settled near the edge. Aaron crawled toward it, relieved it had not shattered. He lifted it, illuminating the new chamber he had dropped into. It was different from the others, round with smooth metal walls and strange symbols etched in a perfect pattern. The air felt warmer here, thick with an old scent like heated stone mixed with something floral. In the center stood a tall pod, half covered in frost, but still humming softly. The pod was shaped like a giant metallic seed, smooth on the surface except for one glowing panel. The symbol on the panel pulsed in rhythm with the core above. His patch translated the symbol. Resonant conduit. Aaron felt a cold wave of dread. The hologram's warning echoed in his mind. Do not let her find the one with resonance. He reached out and touched the side of the pod. The metal felt warm, alive. A sudden shock traveled up his arm, sending a jolt through his chest. The pod reacted instantly. Light rippled across its surface, waking from a long sleep. Before Aaron could move, a sharp metallic crash echoed from the tunnel above. The Huntresses had reached the lower level. Their steps were heavier now, faster, desperate. The leader roared a command in her native language. Her voice cut through the darkness. Aaron Locke, step away from the conduit. He stepped back slowly, chest rising and falling with deep, controlled breaths. The younger huntress dropped into the chamber first, landing with graceful precision despite the fall. She raised her hands in a calming gesture, her voice gentle but trembling. Please, it will awaken if you remain close. You do not understand what you carry. Aaron's jaw tightened. Then explain it. The leader dropped down behind her, blade glowing brightly. There is no time. The Empress must speak to you herself. The pod behind Aaron pulsed again, louder, stronger, responding to his heartbeat. The leader's eyes widened behind her helmet. He is resonating already. We are out of time. Aaron looked between the glowing pod, the terrified younger huntress, and the leader whose calm was finally cracking. Whatever resonance is, it was happening to him, and the Empress was getting closer.